big trade news for the Houston Texans as they could land Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson. And I know the trade deadline's passed, but there are so many rumors that Garrett Wilson will leave the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers. He has made it known that if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback for the Jets next year, Wilson is going to demand a trade. And what better of a landing spot than the Texans? Perfect situation when you look at it. The Texans right now, the second best odds to land the 24-year-old and to pair up with Nico Collins would be huge, especially because we don't know the status of the other two wide receivers in the core at the moment. Tank Dell, very bad knee injury against the Chiefs. We saw it a couple weeks ago. Multiple ligament injury. He tore his ACL, MCL damage. There was a lot, and it was ugly. But he might miss the whole season recovering from that severe injury. Stephon Diggs, his contract is up. So then you look at it, you're like, okay, are we going to re-sign him for a 1-2, 20 million a year? Who knows? And Diggs also tore his ACL. So there's a question of, is he going to be the same player ever again? We don't know. And with so many question marks around the wide receiving core, it's a perfect idea to go out and get Garrett Wilson. The offense has looked so underwhelming this year, and you have to take a look at what do you do if you're the Texans, right? Diggs, done. This trade would be huge. The mock trade would be Garrett Wilson and a fifth for a second this year and a third next year, as long as John Mechie. Mechie, part of the Texans receiving core, solid option. He had to sit out his rookie year with the leukemia incident that came out. So a great story for him. And I wouldn't mind him as our third or fourth receiver, but to get Garrett Wilson would be huge. And looking at the draft in general, I wouldn't even mind giving up a first-round pick. When you look at the Texans team right now, their biggest need is wide receiver. I thought it was going to be secondary this year, but Cameron Bullock came out and balled out. Kamari Lassiter absolutely played lights out. And I wasn't expecting that out of the rookies. I was expecting our secondary to be a severe problem. And it wasn't the best, but it was top 5 in pass defense in terms of yards, allowing yards. Pretty good. It surprised me because the Texans' problems for the past few years, the linebacking core has been inconsistent. Yes, we got a lot of tackles, but there's just been a lot of easy, hey, run all over Houston. Houston has been known as a depleted run defense for years. Now we're a top 10 defense in the league. I think the only reason the Texans have a chance at the playoffs and being a good team is because of their defense. Their offense has had a sophomore slump, and to bring in a talk about the offseason and even conversation about Garrett Wilson on the team, that would be monstrositous. I tried to make up a word, it didn't work. That would be huge. I mean, I can't even define the fact how big this situation would be. Now, the likelihood we give up a second and a third next year, I doubt that. It would be at least a second and a third this year, and I wouldn't even doubt the Jets trying to go out and get a first-round pick from the I wouldn't even mind giving up a first-round pick for 24-year-old Garrett Wilson. Now, the only argument for this right now is the fact that Garrett Wilson is 24 years old. So he's on the last year of his rookie contract, which means he's most likely going to get paid $30 million around the ballpark of Jefferson and Ayuk and all those other great receivers. So do you want to take on that responsibility of maybe paying somebody who might not stick around for the long term? We've seen players hold out for contracts all the time, and I honestly questioned it when Stephon Diggs came to the team. Diggs was this quote-unquote diva for the Bills. He's like, oh, I don't want to play in Buffalo. And then the Texans traded for him. I'm like, I don't know. Is he going to be the same player he was? He has to understand that he's going to take a back seat. He's not going to be the number one wide receiver on this team. We just paid Nico Collins. So you look at the Texans, Diggs comes in, and he takes a backseat role to the leadership mentality, was a great locker room guy. Surprisingly, Stephon Diggs was an amazing character to have around the team. And we might re-sign him as a veteran deal, kind of like an AJ Green on the Cardinals, or just a receiver that is outside of their prime. No offense to Diggs. He can still play, but now with an ACL injury, coming back from that is going to be very difficult. So looking at players on past teams, DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins on the Titans. Julio Jones goes from this is going to sound bad, but he goes from Atlanta to Tennessee. Something like that, to where Stephon Diggs is not going to be a main factor of this offense. He's going to be a 2 or 3. He's going to play, but is he going to be the same guy he was? Probably not. And to bring in Garrett Wilson, that would be monstrositous. I'm going to use the same word I did that doesn't actually have any meaning to it, I'm pretty sure. However, looking at the mock trade again, I want to mention that the draft is a crucial part of success this season. You don't have to go out and trade for a wide receiver like Garrett Wilson because there are so many talents at the wide receiver position this year. You look at the top picks in the draft right now, it's actually pretty good at wide receiver. Tetero McMillan on Arizona. Probably not going to get him. You're going to have to trade up. But Emeka Buka on Ohio State. Luther Burden III. Great guy on Missouri. But, there's so many different receivers out there. Travis Hunter. Do you want to trade up and go get one of those type of guys? So it's definitely a question mark on what do you want to do in terms of whether it's trading for a wide receiver or going to get someone in the draft. I think it's a decent draft class for wide receiver. It's definitely hard to sit here and argue that because of the receivers that we just saw come through this season in 2024. Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman had a solid rookie year. Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors. Everyone played really well. Brian Thomas Jr. looked one of the best receivers in the league. And so that's where you question, okay, do you give up a first-round pick when you need wide receiver? You don't need defense. I just went on a whole spiel of how the secondary looks pretty good. The only thing you can use as a first-round pick right now is the offensive line needs a lot of help. The Texans are the second most sacked team in the league behind Caleb Williams. So that's a problem. The offensive line is a problem. I think the defense is solid. Danielle Hunter's there for a few more years. Will Anderson's on a rookie deal. D tackle area is okay. I think it's pretty solid with Lorenzo Fatukasi. You got a couple good guys on the interior. But for the biggest thing right now is getting a wide receiver. And Garrett Wilson would solve a lot of problems for the Texans. Yes, there's question marks on how that contract would work in future years. And there's also question marks on this mock trade right here. Do the Texans give up a second, third, and maybe a fourth? Because I don't see them giving up just a first. I think a second, third, a fourth sounds like too much. But I think this would make a fair trade. Garrett Wilson to the Texans for sure. John Mechie, a second this year and a third this year. Done deal. If you want to send back a sixth next year, sure. Like a pick swap or something, sure. But I think that's probably the fairest trade you're going to get. Or take out John Mechie and just give up a first-round pick. But I technically don't want to do that because when you look at how the team is structured right now, I would love to keep that first-round pick and invest it on a tackle or a guard because you can move Laremy Tunsil, all-star at the left side, blind side. He's had some flaws this year, a lot of holding penalties. And then you move over to the right side, it's Titus Howard. So right tackle is Titus Howard. I know this kind of turned into a different kind of segment. However, you can move Titus Howard into right guard. You could draft a tackle. Or because Shaq Mason's your veteran, there's been a lot of injuries, you could take another year with Kenyon Green. Or you have Juice Scruggs there at center. He can move center guard. You need another elite tackle or guard to kind of round out this core. And if there's not a guard, take a tackle, move him inside. If there's not a tackle, take a guard, move him outside. I think a lot of guards can move around the front line. It depends on the player, but that is what this offseason is going to look like. We have a lot more to get to in terms of what it's going to mean for the Texans to win another playoff game with not rookie, but last year Stroud won a rookie playoff performance. Can they get it back together? It's been a sophomore slump, or are they going to continue to tail out and fall off? Because nobody's expecting the Texans to do anything, and I'm actually going to make a video on why they have the easiest road to the Super Bowl or to the AFC Championship. I'm not sure yet, but that is the video for today. Garrett Wilson potentially going to the Texans. Huge news. Would be a massive, massive upgrade at the wide receiver position. Great 1-2 punch with Nico Collins, Garrett Wilson on one side, Nico on the other, and maybe have a slot like Stephon Diggs or John Mechie. Somebody rotate in. Who knows if we're going to trade John Mechie? But that's been the whole spiel in one. Is a big mock trade is on the rise this offseason for the Texans, and they need to go get a receiver badly because it looks like Tank is out for a while, and who knows where Diggs will be at next year. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Check out some future videos. Texans, we'll hopefully see them in the AFC Championship, but don't quote me. They have to make a run. They have to figure it out on offense. We're going to make a video soon, but appreciate everyone hanging out. We'll catch you in the next video.